heard the last part of Dr. King's final speech, I've been to the mountaintop, but most folks don't understand that it is a 46-minute speech that is phenomenal. We spoke with Keith Miller, author of Martin Luther King's biblical epic, his final great speech, about it and how important it was.
I call this speech a famous speech, but also an unknown speech. It's famous because the last 2 minutes are famous, especially when he talks about going up to the top of the mountain and looking out to see the promised land, but I may not get there with you. But we as a people will get to the promised land. That part is famous, and people think that he's predicting his assassination the next day. But the rest of the speech is overlooked. But in order to understand the conclusion, you need to understand the entire speech, because if he only wanted to speak for 2 minutes, he would have spoken for 2 minutes. So he spoke for 46 minutes, so he spoke for 46 minutes. The conclusion concludes something. So in order to understand the conclusion, you have to understand the whole speech.
Well, it's the same thing I say every year when it comes to I Have a Dream speech. That was never even in the original written version. And again, as we focus on that as opposed to looking at the entire thing, always from a black church standpoint, I say, we focus on the hoop part. That's the hoop part, but you better understand the thesis in the scripture earlier in the speech.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Earlier in the speech. So one of the things that you lay out, the architecture of the church played a role in this. What do you mean by that?
I think the architecture of the church is very important, and it's been misrepresented by historians. They call it, quote, cavernous. It's not cavernous at all. It's an architectural jewel, and it's beautifully and brilliantly designed.
Mason Temple.
Mason Temple in Memphis. It seats 3,734 people. I know because I counted the seats. So, but somehow the architect was so brilliant that he could get these seats close to the pulpit. So if there hadn't been 3,000 people able to come to the speech, King would not have given the speech at all, because this was the largest venue in the entire South that African Americans controlled. And King was exhausted. He was in his motel room that night. He didn't want to give the speech. And he gave the speech because Ralph Abernathy told him, there's 3,000 people here. We need to, you need to come down here, Martin. If he had been anywhere else, there wouldn't have been that many people there, because there was a giant thunderstorm that night that kept a lot of people away.
You say that King made it clear that the oppressed must focus on the Bible and as you say, lift themselves above the persistent exploitation that they doggedly endure.
Yes, the speech offers King's interpretation of the Bible, and it's very important to understand that. He does something of a tour of the Bible in the speech. He starts out with the Exodus. He quotes Jeremiah. He quotes Isaiah. He quotes Amos. He has a long passage in the speech where he's talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan. And his professors in seminary taught him that the Bible was an ancient document. It's ancient history. It's ancient literature. You need to be an expert on the ancient past in order to understand it. And his Old Testament professor was an archaeologist. But King says, no, anybody can understand the Bible because we are living in the Bible. And what's going on in Memphis is a new chapter in the Exodus. The Exodus is a story that keeps going on. For him, the Bible is only incidentally a book. The Bible is an ongoing narrative. The Exodus is still going on. The civil rights movement is a new chapter in the Exodus. And he has a similar interpretation of the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Keith, what do you think? What do you make of the part of the speech where he says if God were to ask him what time period would he like to live in, he would pick the second half of the 20th century? Why do you think he would pick that?
That's important because before King got to Memphis, the national press was paying zero attention to Memphis and the garbage workers' strike. The garbage workers are all.
They were ignoring him too.
Sure. And they were ignoring him too, right. They were trying to write him off. So when he gets there, he takes this Memphis strike, which the press is ignoring, and he's saying, he's lining it up with these great events in history. I want to go back in time. I want to go back to the Exodus. I want to go back to the Emancipation Proclamation. And he's lining up the strike in Memphis with these great events in history. He's saying this is so important, as opposed to the news media are not even paying attention to Memphis. So he's redesigning the strike.
This has got to be, one of the speeches that I probably paid most attention to over the course of my career. I saw it as a roadmap. I saw it as, King's way of lining out what justice really looked like. He says in this speech, let the issues remain where they are. The issue is justice. And he lines out that it is economic freedom. that it is political freedom, that it is a whole host of things. And so I guess I ask you, if you were talking to the young people of Ferguson today, if you were talking to the young people who fill the streets in New York or D.C., what salient point do you think they ought to take from this particular writing?
King focuses on justice, and that's the reason to focus on the Exodus, because the Exodus is a story of escaping from oppression and escaping from slavery. What King is, to me, what he's saying about the present is, you are important, your issue is important, oppression can still be going on, we may need another Exodus, and you may live in some tiny town, you may live in a small neighborhood in a giant city, you may think that you're not important, but these ordinary people, these strikers in Memphis, who most of them dropped out of high school, they were important players in an important drama. So he's saying that people who think they might be ordinary are capable of extraordinary deeds. And that's what fueled the civil rights movement, the masses of people who look like ordinary people who are making extraordinary sacrifices and creating extraordinary accomplishments.
The book is an amazing book. It is Martin Luther King's biblical epic, his final great speech by Keith D. Miller. Folks, certainly read the book, but definitely you want to hear the speech. I'm glad you broke it down, Keith, because a lot of people literally only hear that last part, but they totally ignore the other 45 minutes, if you will.
Right.
And it is an absolutely phenomenal speech there. We appreciate it. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, sir.
You want to support Roland Martin? Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.